what if we want to partition into 3 sets? Okay, train, validate, and test partitions. Okay, so let's say that we want 50% train, 30% validate, and 20% test. Okay, so the first thing to do is to get the row numbers. Okay. Okay, so here. Okay. So since we have to do 3 sets, let's create a num list 1. Okay, let's do a num list 1, which is our sec length n rows. Oh, I made a mistake here. Okay, so this will be num list 1 will have numbers going from 1, 2, 3 all the way to 58 over 2. Okay. All right. So how many? Okay. How many we want for training? Training, we want 50% of n rows, right? N rows times 0.5. Okay, and then for validation, we want n rows times 30%. Okay. And then the rest is going to be test set. Okay. So we need only these 2 n's. All right. So run that. Okay, see, I made a mistake here again. There should not be a space. Okay, so num list 1. So the next what we have to do is to get the rows for training. Okay, so train train rows. Okay, sample num list, right? What is the name here? Num list 1. So from num list 1, we want how many trn? Okay. So those are the train rows. Okay. And I'm going to use a different name because we want to keep the train and validate the 2 partitions as is for future use. So let's call this TRDF. Okay, and then you subset train rows. Okay, so that's going to create TRDF for us. Okay. Okay. All right. So now we have the train DF. Okay, we can't do a minus here because we need to have two more, not just one more. So we need to now figure out what are the remaining numbers from the num list 1. TRN number of row numbers have been selected out. So we need to now get a second list, which is now you take the first list, okay, take the first list and then take out trained rows from it. Okay. Now num list 2 is a list of numbers, okay, that are not part of train. These are the remaining row numbers. Now from these remaining row numbers, then we can sample the validate row numbers. So say valid rows is sample num list 2, and how many we need? VLN. Okay, and then we'll call it VLDF. Okay, so now that we have the rows for the validation, we can valid rows can now, we can now subset our original data, okay, with the rows that we have selected for validation partition. So that will become the validation partition. Train partition, validation partition. Yeah.
Does it matter that we've already used the name valid rows earlier on above this in this spreadsheet?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to get overwritten if you don't care. Right now, we don't care. So we're using, if you do care, you want to keep it, then you use a different name. Okay, so now we have the third set to do. Okay, now we can use the set difference. So the test rows is set difference, okay, num list 2, okay, and then take away the valid rows from it. Okay. So from this list, if you take away valid rows, what remains is your test rows. Okay. And then we can do a test df of test rows. Okay. Okay, we have done all that. All right, so now we have TR, VL, and test. We have 3 partitions. Okay. Now, actually, there is an alternative code which is even easier. sometimes it could be a little hard to understand. So what we're going to do now is, so we'll create a vector, see, 1 through whatever, 5802, right? Then we'll fill this up with 1, 2, or 3. Okay. So this vector is going to have numbers either 1, 2, or 3, and we will have 60%, 50% of them are ones, 30% of them are twos, and the balance 3. And then we will take all the ones as training, all the twos as validate, and threes as test. Okay. So let's call that index vector. So we're going to sample again, and we're going to sample from exactly 3 numbers: SEQ 1, 3. Okay. Or you can do SEQ len 3, so that will work too. So SEQ 1, 3 will give you 3 numbers, 1, 2, and 3. Okay. So we're going to sample from just these 3 numbers. Okay. So which means we have to tell, okay, the size is n rows. Okay. So we want to go from 1 to 5802. Okay. So that many we want, but what is important is you have to say replace equal to true. So that means once you're not in the previous cases, once a row gets selected, you can select that row again. So you don't put that number back into the list. Okay. So replace equal to false is the default. But now we want to have many ones and many twos and many threes. What 60% of them are ones, 50% of them are ones, and so on. So we have to say replace is true. So once you take one, then you put that one back in, and then keep going. Okay. And then finally, you say at what rate? Okay. Probability equal to, then you say there are 3 numbers, 1, 2, and 3. So you say 0.5, 0.3, and 0.2. So this is going to create an index vector of 1s, 2s, and 3s, and there's going to be 50% of them will be 1s, and so on, right? So once you have that vector, then it is easy. So you say TRDF is, now you say how you subset using a mask. So you say index vector equal to 1. Okay. Now we are doing comparison. You're seeing whether a given number is 1 or not. That is a comparison. So you should use how many equal signs? 2 equal signs. Okay. So if, okay. So all the ones will get subsetted into train, and the twos will get subsetted into okay. So that's another way of doing the same thing.